While I buried my 9-year-old alone, my family drank champagne across town. Then Mom messaged, "Stop being dramatic. This is urgent." She meant my dead son's $850,000 trust fund. The coffin is too small, too small. That's my first coherent thought as they lower Jason into the ground, the final resting place of my 9-year-old son. My hands won't stop shaking. I tried to press them against my black dress, clench them together until my knuckles turned white, even shove them into my pockets. Nothing helps. Tears flow continuously, silent rivers down my cheeks, which I no longer try to wipe away. My stomach clenches with every mechanical hum of the system lowering his coffin, and my knees are ready to buckle beneath me. The cemetery worker nods at me, waiting for some sign that I'm ready for this moment. I will never be ready. 8 months ago, the doctors finally named the monster that was stealing my son's strength. A rare blood disorder, they said, as if labeling it could make it less terrifying. Jason took the news better than I did, his little face serious but determined as the doctor explained the treatment. "Will it hurt?" he asked in a firm voice. "Sometimes," the doctor replied honestly, "but we'll do everything we can to help." He never complained during 8 months of injections, blood transfusions, and medications with names I could barely pronounce. Even when his little body was ravaged by fever, leaving him shivering under hospital blankets, he looked at me with eyes so like his father's and said, "I'm okay, Mom. Don't worry." Now I stand alone at his grave, the pain of their absence physically painful, sharp, like the loss itself. My parents, who should be standing beside me, my sister Emily, who promised she would always be there for us, Rachel, my best friend since 3rd grade, who held my hand during the divorce but didn't bother to show up today. I reach for my phone, a reflexive gesture that I immediately regret. Emily's Instagram feed loads automatically. Photos from her engagement party at the Grand Paradise Hotel fill my screen. It's happening right now, at this very moment. There she is, glass of champagne raised, diamonds sparkling, our parents beaming beside her. The timestamp shows it was posted 20 minutes ago, while I was listening to the priest say words that couldn't convey who Jason was. "Are you holding up, dear?" I look up and see Margaret, my elderly neighbor, the only person who came today. Her weathered hand rests gently on mine, her eyes full of genuine concern. For 18 months, she brought home-cooked meals to our house when I was too exhausted from hospital visits to cook. She sat with Jason when I needed to shower or sleep. She never once treated his illness as an inconvenience. "They didn't come," I whisper, the words barely audible. None of them. I can't stop thinking about Jason's laughter, real before the illness, when he was bubbling somewhere deep inside, uncontrollable. How he declared at age 7 that he was going to be a doctor to treat kids like me someday. How he insisted on wearing his superhero pajamas to chemotherapy appointments because superheroes are brave, even when they're scared. "That boy loved you more than anything in the world," Margaret says quietly. I nod, remembering how Michael, my ex-husband, set up an $850,000 college trust fund for Jason before his company transferred him overseas. "If anything happens," he said, "you are the residual beneficiary." I know you will honor his memory. He couldn't have known how soon those words would become important. Part of me wants to call my parents and scream until my voice is hoarse. How could they choose Emily's engagement party over their grandson's funeral? Another part feels too numb to feel anything at all. I spent 18 months fighting for my son's life, sleeping in hospital chairs, memorizing medical terminology, advocating when doctors ignored symptoms. Now there is nothing to fight for. My phone buzzes with a notification. My mother's name appears on the screen. "We need to talk. Bring the trust documents tomorrow." I stare at the message, rereading it twice to make sure I understand. They didn't come to Jason's funeral, but they're interested in his trust fund. Something cold and analytical cuts through my grief for the first time today. Something doesn't add up. I reply, "I'm burying my son today. I can't talk about paperwork right now." Her reply comes instantly, "Don't be dramatic, Jessica. This is important for the whole family." The whole family. The same family that couldn't spare 2 hours to say goodbye to Jason. The reality of what is happening begins to crystallize. It's not just about money. It's about the last thing I have from my son. His legacy. The future he will never have. I suddenly realize with clarity that I am alone in this fight. My parents, Emily, even Rachel, they've banded together, coordinating while I'm vulnerable and isolated in my grief. What have they been planning? For how long? Margaret notices my stress. What's wrong? I show her the message from my mother, watching her face harden as she reads. "Oh my God," she says quietly. "They can't really be thinking." I turn my phone off completely. Whatever they want, it can wait. This moment belongs to Jason. I won't let them take that away from me, too. Margaret gently puts her hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone, dear. I'm here." The cemetery worker approaches timidly. "I'm sorry, but we need to finish the service." I look at Jason's coffin, suspended above the open ground. Should I leave now? Leave him here alone? My body feels frozen, unable to take the first step away. Margaret steps forward. "Give her a moment, please." She's saying goodbye to her boy. The worker nods and steps back, respecting the boundary Margaret has created. I reach into my pocket and pull out Jason's favorite figurine, the one he insisted on keeping with him during every hospital stay. I kneel by the grave and gently place it on top of his coffin. "I'll protect what's yours. I promise," I whisper. As I stand up, something shifts inside me. A small spark ignites through the fog of grief. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but one thing I know with absolute certainty: they won't take my son's inheritance without a fight. The morning after the funeral begins gray and rainy, matching my mood as I drive to my parents' colonial house in Maplewood. I grip the steering wheel too tightly, my knuckles turning white with every mile closer to their house. My throat tightens at the thought of seeing them after yesterday, after they chose Emily's engagement party over their own grandson's funeral. I park behind the familiar silver BMW, Rachel's car. Of course, she's here too. The front door opens before I reach it. My father stands in the foyer, his face a practiced mask of paternal concern that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "Jessica, come in. We've been waiting. The living room feels like a boardroom." Emily sits neatly on the cream sofa, her legs crossed at the ankles, her blonde hair gathered into a perfect chignon. Rachel perches next to her, studying her manicure with sudden enthusiasm as I enter. My mother stands by the fireplace, one hand resting on a framed family photo where we are all smiling, posing for the camera. No one mentions Jason. No one says they are sorry. My father wastes no time. He walks over to the red coffee table, where an open folder lies, papers arranged in neat piles. "We need to redistribute the trust with Emily as the trustee," he announces, sliding the document toward me. "Sign here and here." I don't reach for the pen. "What are you talking about?" Emily crosses her legs and leans forward. "Jessica, you're not in a position to manage that kind of money. We're trying to help." My mother moves closer, her voice honeyed with false sympathy. "You've always been impulsive with money. Remember that boutique you wanted to open after college? Luckily, your father talked you out of it." I nod at Rachel, hoping to see some spark of the friendship we once shared. She meets my gaze briefly before looking away, her silence confirming her loyalty. "We've already spoken to Michael's lawyer," my father says, tapping the papers. "Given your mental state, he agrees that this is a sensible course of action." The words hit me like physical blows. I pick up one of the documents, recognizing the legal jargon about mental competency assessments. Another page catches my eye, a study of trust law dated 14 months ago, when Jason was first hospitalized. "You've been planning this since Jason got sick," I whisper, the realization sinking in. "While I was sitting by his hospital bed, You were researching how to take his money if he died. Emily sighs dramatically. You're exaggerating again. That's why we're concerned. My father pulls out another document, sliding it across the table. If you refuse to sign, we're prepared to file for guardianship. The court will understand that grief has compromised your judgment. The full extent of their betrayal crystallizes. They dismissed Jason's illness for 8 months, calling me overly protective when I insisted that something was seriously wrong. Now I understand why. They were positioning themselves the whole time, waiting for the worst. My world shifts. Reality rearranges itself around this terrible truth. Memory after memory is reframed in this new light. My mother, 10 months ago. It's probably just anemia, Jessica. You always make a mountain out of a molehill. My father, when Jason needed specialized treatment, these doctors are taking advantage of your anxiety. He just needs vitamins. Emily refusing to visit him in the hospital. Hospitals are depressing. Besides, he'll get better anyway. I see a blueprint peeking out from under the trust documents. I pull it out. Renovation plans for Emily's new house. A $200,000 kitchen remodel, a home theater, a pool with a waterfall. You didn't even visit him in the hospital, I say, my voice thick with the clarity of anger. Not once in 8 months. Emily throws her head back, impatient. We all grieve differently, Jessica. Some of us are just better at it. The casual cruelty of her words stuns me. For the first time, I see my family clearly, not as the loving support system I've desperately tried to believe in, but as people who see Jason and me as props in their perfect family image, useful only when convenient. Why now? I ask. Why the sudden urgency? Emily exchanges glances with my parents. Something passes between them, a silent communication that excludes me, as always. You deserve to know. You deserve to know, Emily finally says. Brian's development company is facing some cash flow problems. The wedding may have to be postponed if we can't secure additional financing. My mother nervously twirls her pearl necklace. And there's a country property in Charleston. The market has turned, and we've stretched ourselves a little thin. We're not villains, Jessica, my father says, his tone softening to the one he uses when closing business deals. We're a family facing difficult circumstances. Rachel finally speaks, her voice small. My divorce will be final next month. Emily promised me a position at Brian's company. I need this, Jessica. I have to think about the twins. I see them now, not cartoon villains, but frightened people willing to sacrifice me to preserve their lifestyle, status, comfort. If you don't sign, we'll have to take more drastic measures, my father warns, his friendly mask slipping. My mother reaches for my hand. After everything we've done for you and Jason all these years. I almost laugh. What exactly have they done? Sent greeting cards with $20 bills inside? Called once a month to ask superficial questions about our lives? Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be, my father says, his voice hardening. Emily looks at her watch. We need to decide within 60 days of the deadline for Brian's next project funding. The desperation in their eyes tells me everything. They need Jason's money, my money now, to solve their problems. I get up, gather the documents, and put them back in the folder. I need time to think, I say, heading for the door. Jessica. My father's voice carries a sharp edge that I remember from childhood arguments. Don't walk away from that table. I quietly close the front door behind me. In my car, I press my forehead against the steering wheel, overwhelmed by what just happened. My phone buzzes with a message from Margaret. How did it go? I'm here if you need to talk. Before I can reply, another call comes in. Michael's parents. I answer with trembling hands. Jessica, dear. Lindsay's voice is warm with genuine concern. We just heard about the funeral. We're so sorry we couldn't be there. We were in Europe and just got the news. We love that boy so much, Tom adds, his voice breaking. Their grief sounds real, their concern authentic. unlike the calculated performance I just witnessed from my family. As I hang up the phone, I remember something Michael said when he set up Jason's trust. If you ever have any questions, contact David Anderson. He's the best trust lawyer in the state. For the first time today, I feel a spark of hope. I am not alone in this fight. Margaret, who saw me care for Jason every day. Michael's parents, who loved him unconditionally. David Anderson, who knows exactly what Michael meant by Jason's money. I start the car, my decision made. I will not try to fight this battle alone. I reach for my phone and find David Anderson's number in my contacts. Mr. Anderson's office, the secretary answers. I need to speak to him immediately, I say, surprised at the steadiness of my voice. It's about the Jason Robinson Trust. That same day, David Anderson's office gleams with polished wood and leather books. I clutch my folder of documents so tightly that my knuckles turn white. After 2 sleepless nights researching trust laws online, I'm still unsure of my rights or how my family could try to take Jason's inheritance away from me. David rises from behind his red desk as his assistant ushers me in. He is older than I expected, with gray hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. His handshake is firm, his eyes kind but assessing. Mrs. Robinson, please have a seat. I am very sorry about your son. Thank you. My voice breaks. I have heard those words dozens of times over the past week, but his tone carries genuine empathy, not obligation. I slide the folder across his desk. These are all the documents I have about Jason's trust. My ex-husband, Michael, set it up before his company transferred him overseas. David opens the folder, scanning the contents with practiced efficiency. He nods occasionally, pausing to read certain sections more carefully. The silence stretches until I can't bear it anymore. My family wants me to relinquish control of the trust. They claim I'm not mentally stable enough to manage it because of my grief. The words taste bitter on my tongue. They didn't even come to Jason's funeral. David looks up sharply. They weren't at the funeral. No, my sister Emily had an engagement party that same day. My parents and my former best friend Rachel chose to go there instead. He takes off his glasses, squeezing his nose. I remember when Michael set up this trust. He was very specific about his intentions. David opens his desk drawer and pulls out a manila folder with Michael's name on the tab. I gasp. I didn't expect him to have separate records. Michael was extremely thorough, David explains, pulling out a notarized document. This is his statement of intent for the trust. He hands me the paper, and I read Michael's familiar handwriting. This trust is to provide for Jason's future, and if the worst happens, to provide for Jessica, who sacrificed everything to care for him. Tears blur my vision. Even from across the ocean, Michael had prepared for this possibility, seeing what I couldn't bear to admit. There's more, David says, turning his computer monitor so I can see. These are phone records from our office for the past year. The table shows several calls from numbers I recognize immediately, my parents' landline and Emily's cell phone. Did they contact you about Jason's trust? My voice sharpens. Not me specifically. They called asking about the terms of the trust and beneficiary laws. My assistant flagged it because she recognized the names from Michael's file. They never actually spoke to a lawyer here. Clarity breaks through my grief for the first time in days. They knew about the terms of the trust before Jason died. That's why they planned it. It seems that way, David says, his expression hardening. Mrs. Robinson, I want to be very clear about something. This trust has clear provisions to prevent family interference. Michael built in several layers of protection specifically to ensure that the funds would go to Jason or to you as the residual beneficiary. They have no legal basis to challenge this. The trust is ironclad. The weight pressing on my chest eases a little. So they can't take it away? Not legally? No. But they can try other tactics, claiming you're mentally unfit due to grief, for example. I think of my mother's dismissive text message at the funeral, Emily's cold calculation, my father's awkward silence when they presented the papers for my signature. So I don't have to fight them for the trust, I say slowly, putting the pieces together. I just need to prove their intent. David's eyes narrow thoughtfully. That would certainly strengthen your position. Do you have any documentation of their attempts to gain control? I pull out my phone, showing him my mother's text messages from the day of the funeral. His eyebrows rise as he reads. "This is extremely helpful," he says. "Now I suggest we arrange a meeting with your family. On your terms, in a public place." 2 days later, I'm sitting at a corner table at Riverside Cafe, the manila envelope deliberately placed in front of me. The shop is buzzing with daytime customers, just as I'd hoped. David's advice echoes in my mind. Public places deter drama. Control the narrative from the start. Margaret is waiting in her car across the street, ready if I need help. David is on call. For the first time since Jason's diagnosis, I don't feel completely alone. My family arrives together. Emily leads the procession in designer sunglasses. My parents follow as chaperones. Rachel trails behind, avoiding my gaze. They take their seats around the table without ordering drinks, clearly expecting this to be brief. Emily immediately reaches for the manila envelope. "So, you signed the papers." I knew you'd be smart. I place my hand firmly on the envelope. "Before we discuss any papers, I want to know why none of you came to Jason's funeral." My mother sighs dramatically. "Jessica, we've been through this. Emily's engagement was planned months ago. We couldn't cancel everything on such short notice." "It was your grandson's funeral," I say quietly. "And we mourned in our own way," my father replies, glancing nervously at the neighboring tables. "Everyone experiences loss differently." I open the envelope and pull out several photos, screenshots from Emily's Instagram, time-stamped during Jason's funeral, raised champagne glasses, a sparkling diamond. Everyone laughs. "While I was burying my son, you were drinking champagne and laughing." My voice remains steady, but people at the neighboring tables glance over. Emily's face reddens. "You're taking that out of context." "That's not fair." I pull the second document from the envelope, the notarized trust terms with "no changes without the beneficiary's consent" highlighted in yellow. Michael made his intentions very clear. This money is Jason's inheritance to me. My father reaches for the papers. "Let me see that." I pull them back before he can grab them. "I spoke to David Anderson. He has Michael's original statement of intent. The trust cannot be changed, transferred, or accessed by anyone but me." Emily's carefully composed expression cracks. "You don't deserve that money. You'll just waste it." Her voice carries. Several customers turn to look. "Keep your voice down," my mother hisses. "Why?" I ask, looking straight at Emily. "Are you worried people will hear you trying to take advantage of your grieving sister?" "How could you not bother to come to your nephew's funeral, but you want his college fund?" Emily stands up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. We're trying to help you." "I don't need your help," I say, gathering the papers back into the envelope. "I'm not signing anything. Ever." My father leans forward, his voice low and threatening. "You're making a mistake, Jessica." "We can make things very difficult for you. You already have," I reply, standing up. "My whole life, but no more." I walk out, feeling their eyes burning into my back. Outside, Margaret is waiting in her car, the window rolled down. When I get into the passenger seat, she gives me a haughty smile. "You stood up to them." "Good for you." My phone rings. David is calling for an update. "How did it go?" he asks when I answer. "Do we need to prepare for immediate legal action?" I describe the confrontation as Margaret drives us away from the coffee shop. David listens intently, then confirms that we are in a strong legal position. "They'll probably try something else," he warns, "but you've set boundaries, which is critical." After we hang up, another call comes in. Michael's parents are offering to fly in from Arizona to attest to Michael's intentions if needed. "We always knew that caring for Jason was your priority," Michael's mother says. "We will support you in any way we can." A text message follows from Steve, my former colleague who regularly visited Jason during his stay in the hospital. "Margaret told me what's going on. Whatever you need, I'm here." For the first time in weeks, I feel the weight on my chest lift. I'm not fighting this alone anymore. In Margaret's driveway, I pause before getting out of the car. I touch the photo of Jason on my dashboard, his last school photo taken before he got sick. His smile is still bright with hope. "First step done, buddy," I whisper. Margaret squeezes my hand. "You did great today." I nod, looking at the horizon. But they won't give up easily. They'll try something bigger next time. "And we'll be ready," Margaret says firmly. "You're not alone anymore, Jessica." I take a deep breath, feeling something unfamiliar building inside me. Not just grief, not just anger, but determination. They couldn't be bothered to say goodbye to my son. They won't decide what happens to his legacy. 3 days after the confrontation at the coffee shop, I lay out the documents on David Anderson's red desk, my hands steady as I arrange them into neat piles. The grief still throbs beneath my skin, but something else has emerged alongside it, a cold, clear objectivity that surprises me with its intensity. "They'll file for guardianship," David says, tapping his finger on the legal brief. His office smells of leather and old books, the kind of place where battles are planned, not fought. "They'll try to prove you're mentally unfit because of your grief." It's their clearest path to the trust. I nod, studying the timeline I've created. 18 months of Jason's illness, mapped out in painful detail. Emily never does her dirty work herself. She'll use Mom and Dad as applicants, maybe even Rachel. "Smart observation," David says with genuine respect in his voice. "We need to document every interaction since Jason's diagnosis, every hospital visit you made, every appointment they missed." I take out my phone and open my calendar. I have records of all the appointments. I can prove I never missed a single one. My voice breaks a little. Not even the day after Michael left for abroad. David makes a note. "What about your parents? Emily? 0 visits. Not when he was diagnosed. Not during the 3 weeks he spent in isolation after the bone marrow transplant failed." The memory stings, but I push through it. Even when the doctors told us there was nothing more they could do. "Document everything," David says. "We're not moving yet. We're preparing. We're gathering evidence. We anticipate their attack. When they come, and they will come, we will be ready." I run my finger over the hospital bill, remembering how I learned to decipher medical codes and challenge insurance company denials. How I became Jason's advocate when no one else would. 8 months of treatment and not one visit from them. Not one. David leans forward. "Jessica, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about proving that you're mentally competent. It's about proving that they never cared about Jason. Only his money." The words hurt, but the truth in them strengthens me. Then that's exactly what we'll prove. Over the next hour, we sort through financial statements showing my careful handling of Jason's medical expenses. David brings in a notary to witness my signing of the affidavit. The preparation feels like building armor. Each document is another plate of protection around Jason's estate. "They'll argue that your grief makes you unstable," David warns. "We need to counter that narrative before they can establish it." "Margaret kept a diary," I say, surprised by this knowledge. "She documented every time she helped with Jason during his illness. She told me yesterday." David nods approvingly. "Perfect. Observations from a neutral third party will carry significant weight." I take out my notebook. I also contacted Jason's primary oncologist and his teacher. Both are willing to provide character references. "Great," says David. "Now what about Michael? His intent in creating the trust may be decisive." I called his parents last night. They are coordinating with his lawyer to document his original intentions. The words come easily now, every strategic move clear in my mind. And I've installed security cameras in the house. If they try to oppose me again, it will be documented. David takes a note. I'm consulting with Dr. Elizabeth Wilson tomorrow. She's a psychiatric expert who can evaluate you and counter any challenges to your mental competence that they may bring. I hesitate before sharing my next thought. I'm taking screenshots. Every time they dismissed Jason's illness as something minor, every text where they claimed I was overreacting, my voice hardens. They created a pattern of minimizing his condition while simultaneously planning to take his trust fund. This is exactly the type of evidence we need, David says quietly, not just to protect you, but to expose their motives. I look out his office window at the autumn leaves dancing across the parking lot. Jason loved autumn. The colors, the smell of cinnamon, the way the leaves crunched underfoot. Last October, I wheeled him out of the hospital in his wheelchair just so he could feel the fresh air on his face. "Are you okay?" David asks. "Just reminiscing," I say, returning to the present. "What else do we need?" As David outlines our next steps, my phone buzzes with a message from Margaret. "Just heard from Martha at the hospital. Rachel asked about Jason's treatment schedule. Be careful." My stomach clenches. I show David the message. "They're gathering ammunition," he says grimly. "Rachel would have had access to information about when you were in the hospital. Your emotional state during treatment. She signed something, didn't she?" The realization hits me like a physical blow, an affidavit, claiming I was unstable during Jason's illness. David's silence confirms my suspicion. "She was my friend since 3rd grade, I whisper, the betrayal cutting deeper than I expected. "She held my hand during the divorce." "Emily recruits anyone with inside knowledge of your life," David says softly. "That significantly increases the threat level." Now I remember Rachel's increasingly rare visits as Jason's condition worsened, her awkward expression when I broke down after a particularly devastating prognosis, the way she stopped looking me in the eye during those last few weeks. "She'll claim she witnessed unstable behavior," I say in a hollow voice, and she wouldn't be entirely wrong. I did fall apart sometimes. Who wouldn't? For the first time since our strategy session began, doubt creeps in. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am falling apart. I look at my trembling hands. "Look at me." "Don't," David says firmly. "That's exactly what they want, to make you doubt yourself." My phone rings again. "Margaret, I'm going to David's office. I found my diaries. You need to see this." 30 minutes later, Margaret enters, carrying a stack of notebooks. Her gray hair is neatly pinned up, her eyes fierce with protective energy. "Rachel can say whatever she wants," Margaret announces, placing the diaries on David's desk. "But I documented everything. Every day you spent in that hospital. Every night you didn't sleep with Jason when he couldn't sleep. Every meal I brought because you wouldn't leave his side." She takes my hands in hers. "Don't let them make you doubt yourself, Jessica." That's exactly what they want. The warmth of her hands calms mine. I look from Margaret to David, then up at the mountain of evidence we've gathered. My son's legacy protected by truth, documented fact upon documented fact. "You're right," I say, straightening my shoulders. "I need to prepare for character assassinations, not just legal challenges." As I organize Margaret's diaries into our pile of evidence, I realize that we are building more than a legal defense. We are creating a monument to the truth about who really supported Jason when it mattered and who didn't. Later that evening, after Margaret left, my hands were shaking as I glued the last photo to the evidence board in David's office. It shows my parents at Emily's engagement party. Champagne glasses raised in celebration exactly 42 minutes after Jason's coffin was lowered into the ground. "That's the last piece," David says, stepping back to survey our work. The conference room wall has been transformed into a comprehensive chronology of betrayal. Medical records showing every appointment I attended, financial reports proving responsible handling of Jason's medical expenses, notarized statements from hospital staff, neighbors, and Jason's teachers, documented 18 months of my family's absence during Jason's illness. Will this be enough? I ask, adjusting the document detailing Emily's unauthorized access to Jason's medical files. David adjusts his glasses, his expression serious but confident. They will file for emergency guardianship, claiming you are mentally unfit, but we have anticipated every argument they could make. He touches the notarized statement from Michael's parents. That alone makes their position legally shaky. I run my finger over the timeline we've created. 8 months of hospital visits, countless nights spent sleeping in uncomfortable chairs by Jason's bedside. The treatments, the hopes, the setbacks, all meticulously documented. I never thought I'd have to prove I was a good mother, I whisper. You shouldn't have to, David says, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. But people who want what isn't theirs will create any narrative that serves them. As if on cue, my phone buzzes with a message from Margaret. I read aloud, 23 neighbors have signed the character petition. It's a small victory, but each one strengthens our position. I spent the past week gathering an arsenal of truth against my family's inevitable attack. Security cameras now monitor my home, recording any unwanted visits. I documented every text, every voice message, every social media post where Emily subtly questions my mental state. They're painting me as unstable, I say, looking at Emily's recent Facebook post asking for prayers for family members struggling with mental health issues after their loss. The comment section is filled with sympathetic responses, none mentioning that she didn't attend her nephew's funeral. David nods grimly. Classic strategy. They can't win on legal grounds, so they try to win in the court of public opinion first. The phone on his desk rings. David answers, his expression darkening as he listens. I see. Thank you for letting us know. He hangs up and turns back to me. That was my contact at Memorial Hospital. Someone requested Jason's complete medical records yesterday. My stomach drops. Who? Emily used the old emergency contact form to gain access. The room seems to tilt slightly. They'll twist everything, I say, my voice rising. They'll find that one time I questioned a medication dose or got emotional with a nurse and use it to make me look incompetent. They're getting desperate, David says. This breach of confidentiality shows how far they're willing to go. I grip the edge of the table to steady myself. What else are they doing that we don't know about? David opens his laptop. Let's find out. He types quickly, then turns the screen toward me. They've been calling your former colleagues at the marketing firm. A LinkedIn message pops up from my old supervisor. Jessica, your sister called asking about your emotional stability at work. What's going on? Call me. They're building a case against me on all fronts, I say, anger finally breaking through my grief. They're trying to erase everything I did for Jason. David closes his laptop. We need to add a defamation suit to our strategy. This goes beyond trust. Now they're attacking your reputation. I think of Jason's brave face during treatment, how he never complained, even on his worst days. If my 9-year-old child could face death with courage, I can face my family with the same determination. Let them try, I say, my voice steadier than it has been in weeks. We have something they don't. What's that? David asks. The truth, I reply, turning back to our evidence board. Every moment I spent with Jason, every decision I made for him, every sacrifice. It's all here. They can't erase that. David nods in agreement. I'll update our legal response package to include their latest actions. By evening, we have refined our strategy, taking into account Emily's escalation tactics. David confirms, our legal response is complete. Character witnesses are lined up. Evidence is organized. Counterclaims are ready. Margaret calls as I drive home. The security system is working perfectly, she tells me. I checked it again while you were out. Thank you, I say, feeling a wave of gratitude toward this woman who has become more family to me than my actual relatives. Michael's parents are arriving tomorrow. They're bringing the documentation about the original purpose of the trust. You did everything you could to protect Jason's legacy, Margaret says firmly. Now we wait for them to make their move. As I pull into the driveway, I realize that something has shifted inside me. The paralyzing grief hasn't gone away, but something else has joined it, a fierce, protective anger that burns away the fog of despair. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm angry and ready. The next morning, the sheriff's knock hits like a hammer. When I open the door, his face is professionally emotionless as he hands me a thick manila envelope. Jessica Robinson, you're being summoned to court. My fingers tremble as I take it. The weight feels wrong. Too heavy for simple paper, too light for the destruction it contains. The sheriff tips his hat and leaves while I stand frozen in the doorway, the envelope burning my skin. Inside, I spread the papers out on the kitchen table and scan the headline, Emergency Petition for Guardianship. My stomach lurches. They're not just after Jason's money anymore. They want control over me. The phone rings. David. They filed, I say in a hollow voice. I know, just got the notice. How are you holding up? I look at the affidavit attached to the petition. Rachel's signature stands out at first, 3 pages detailing every moment of weakness she witnessed during Jason's illness, the time I forgot to eat, the night I cried uncontrollably in the hospital hallway, the morning I couldn't remember if I had taken my own medication. They twisted everything, I whisper. They quoted his medical records, things I told the doctors in confidence. Emily shouldn't have had access to those files, David says, his voice hardening. This is our counterattack. The hospital ethics committee is already investigating. I flip to the next page, financial statements showing my depleted savings account. 18 months without a steady income, caring for Jason, had drained everything. They've highlighted every overdraft fee, every late payment, presenting it as evidence of financial irresponsibility rather than the reality of a mother spending everything to save her son. The hearing is tomorrow, David says. We knew this was coming. We're ready. But I'm not sure I am. This isn't just about money anymore. They're trying to take away my autonomy, my dignity, my very identity as a competent adult. The document in front of me paints a picture of a woman falling apart, incapable of making rational decisions, a danger to herself without proper supervision. Have you seen the newspaper? David asks quietly. I go to the local news site on my phone. There they are, my parents, sitting in their immaculate living room, sadness etched into their carefully composed expressions. The headline makes me sick. Family seeks help for grieving mother. My father's quote appears in bold. It breaks our hearts, but we have to protect her from herself. I switch to social media and find Emily's carefully crafted post, an archived photo of us as children, her arm around my shoulders. Sometimes the hardest thing is to intervene when someone you love is suffering. Please keep our family in your thoughts during this difficult time. #mental health. #family first. The comment section is overflowing with support for them. People who don't know us, don't know Jason, offering prayers and praise for their bravery in helping me. They have already judged and condemned me in the court of public opinion. Courts don't decide cases based on Instagram likes, David responds. I filed our counter petition. Michael's parents arrived this morning. They are prepared to testify about his intentions regarding the trust. The Hospital Ethics Committee has issued an official statement about unauthorized access to Jason's records. I touch the silver medallion around my neck, feeling Jason's photo inside. What if that's not enough? It will be, David says with quiet confidence. Margaret has more than 20 neighbors coming to support you. Your former supervisor has submitted a statement about your professionalism. And Dr. Levinson, Jason's primary physician, has provided an affidavit praising your medical decisions throughout his treatment. My phone beeps with a message from Margaret. We're all ready for tomorrow. The whole neighborhood is behind you. For the first time since receiving the sheriff's papers, I feel something beyond fear, a spark of determination fueled by the absurdity of their claims. They weren't there, not one of them. Not for any chemotherapy, not for any blood transfusions, not for any night when Jason's temperature rose to 40 degrees and I thought I might lose him right there in the pediatric oncology ward. I also submitted security camera footage, David continues, showing Emily and your mother trying to get into your house last week when you were meeting with me. I remember coming home and finding the doorbell camera notification, watching the recording of them checking door handles, peering through windows. We're fighting back on all fronts, David says. The request for a restraining order is included in our counter-petition. I look at the documents spread out on my desk. Their lies printed on legal stationery, made official with court seals and case numbers. Tomorrow, a judge will read these words and make decisions about my life based on them. Rest, David advises. Tomorrow will be intense. But rest does not come. I am reviewing my testimony for the 4th time when the camera notification flashes on my phone at 9:48 p.m. Emily is standing on my porch, alone. I consider ignoring her, but something tells me to face it. I activate the recording function on my phone before opening the door, leaving the security chain engaged. What do you want, Emily? She looks different than she did during our confrontation at the coffee shop. Softer somehow, her expression concerned rather than confrontational. If I didn't know better, I might believe she genuinely cares. Can I come in? Just to talk, she asks in a soft voice. No. Her shoulders slump a little. Jessica, please. This doesn't have to be so public, so ugly. You made it public when you gave that interview. You made it ugly when you accessed Jason's private medical records. Emily glances at the security camera, clearly aware that she is being recorded. I'm offering you one last chance to avoid public embarrassment. Withdraw your opposition to the guardianship petition. Sign over control of the trust to me as administrator. We'll withdraw the petition, and no one will ever know about your episodes. The word hangs between us like poison. Episodes. The night you called Rachel at 3 a.m., hysterical about Jason's breathing. The time the hospital almost called child services because you couldn't remember when he last took his medication. Her voice remains sympathetic, but her eyes are cold. We will completely destroy your reputation. Everyone will know how unstable you are. I feel a strange calmness coming over me. I think you should leave now, Emily. Her mask slips then. Just for a moment, but it's enough. Anger flashes across her features before she composes herself. You think you deserve that money? You've always been a burden. A problem child, a disappointment. She leans closer to the door. We've carried you your whole life. Now it's time for you to do something for this family. I close the door without another word, my hands steady for the first time all day. I call David immediately, forwarding him the recording. Perfect, he says after listening. Her mask has finally slipped. This is exactly what we needed. After midnight, Margaret arrives with an overnight bag. I thought you might need some company, she says, placing a thermos of tea on my kitchen table. Thank you, I whisper, unsure if I can explain how much her presence means to me. Tomorrow we'll show them what real strength looks like, she says, squeezing my hand. My phone glows with a message from David. Everything is ready. Michael believed in you. So do we. I can't sleep, so instead I sit in Jason's room, holding his favorite stuffed dinosaur. The glow-in-the-dark stars we glued to his ceiling still shine faintly. I take out the locket and open it to see his smiling face. Tomorrow is for you, buddy, I whisper to his photo, for your legacy. For the first time since the sheriff knocked on my door, I feel something beyond fear or determination. I feel readiness. The next morning, I walk into the courtroom with my head held high, accompanied by David, Margaret, and Michael's parents. The polished wood and solemn atmosphere remind me of a church, a temple where truth should matter more than performance. Emily, my parents, and Rachel sit on the opposite side, their faces set in expressions of practiced concern. My stomach clenches as I take my seat. It has been 48 hours since the sheriff handed me papers declaring me mentally unfit to manage my own affairs, let alone my son's inheritance. David gently squeezes my hand as we settle into the defendant's table. All rise for the Honorable Judge Marion Peabody. A stern woman in her 60s enters, her gray hair pulled back into a tight bun. She scans the emergency petition with narrowed eyes before addressing the courtroom. These are serious allegations. I expect both sides to present evidence, not emotions. Her gaze sweeps across both tables. Mr. Harrington, you may begin for the petitioners. Now I see what is at stake. My family's lawyer stands up, his expensive suit and confident posture reflecting their confidence that they will win. Your Honor, this is a case of a family desperately trying to help a daughter and sister who is spiraling after an unimaginable loss. He walks to the bench, presenting documents with practiced solemnity. Miss Robinson has exhibited disturbing behavior since her son's death. Unstable financial decisions, isolation, refusal to accept help from those who love her most. I clench my fists under the table as he continues to paint me as unstable and dangerous to myself and Jason's money. When Rachel takes the stand, my chest tightens. Jessica changed during Jason's illness, she testifies, avoiding my eyes. She became obsessed with treatment, paranoid that the doctors were missing something. She would call me at 3 a.m., hysterical. The memory of those nights cuts through me, sitting by Jason's hospital bed, terrified when his fever spiked, turning to someone I thought was a friend. My isolation wasn't paranoia. It was abandonment by the people who are now testifying against me. My mother takes the stand next, wiping away tears that appear on cue. It breaks our hearts to watch her destroy herself. This isn't about money. It's about protecting our daughter when she can't protect herself. The judge's expression softens during my mother's testimony. A cold wave of fear washes over me. She is falling for their game. Then David stands up, and everything shifts. Your Honor, what we are witnessing today is not concern, but calculation. His voice fills the courtroom with quiet authority. Ms. Robinson did not destroy herself. She was systematically targeted by family members who abandoned her during her son's illness, but suddenly reappeared when they learned of his trust fund. He begins to methodically dismantle their case, presenting complete hospital records chronicling every appointment I attended, every treatment decision I researched and approved, every night I slept in a hospital chair. Now I would like to call Miss Catherine Winters, the hospital records administrator. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes takes the stand and confirms what David suspected. Our system shows that Miss Emily Robinson accessed Jason's complete medical records 2 weeks ago using an outdated emergency contact form. This constitutes a serious breach of privacy. Emily shifts uncomfortably in her chair as a murmur ripples through the courtroom. Margaret testifies next, her steady voice carrying decades of wisdom. I watched Jessica care for that boy every day. When he couldn't keep food down, she researched what might help and stayed up late learning how to cook meals that wouldn't make him nauseous. When he was afraid of his treatments, she made up stories about superheroes to help him understand what was happening. Her eyes find mine. I never once saw her falter. Michael's father, Tom, takes the stand next. Although we were never close, his testimony is clear and confident. My son created this trust with clear instructions. He told me, "Dad, if anything happens to Jason, Jessica gets everything. She sacrificed her career, her savings, everything to give him the best care. She will preserve his memory more worthily than anyone else." The judge's expression changes. Her eyes are sharper, more focused on my family now. "Your Honor," David says, "I would like to present one more piece of evidence." He plays the security footage from last night, Emily's unexpected visit to my home. Her voice fills the courtroom. "We're going to destroy your reputation. Everyone will know how unstable you are." My calm response follows. "I think you should leave now, Emily." Emily's true colors come out in her next words. "Do you think you deserve that money? You've always been a burden." My sister's face turns deep red. My mother's hand flies to her mouth. My father stares straight ahead, his jaw tense. The judge calls a 15-minute recess. When she returns, Emily tries to speak, but Judge Peabody silences her with a sharp gesture. "Mr. Anderson, do you have any additional evidence?" David nods. "One last exhibit, Your Honor." He plays the audio recording of our meeting at the coffee shop. The voices are crystal clear. My mother. "Once custody is approved, we can resolve Emily's mortgage situation." Emily. "And the beach house renovation. The contractor needs $50,000 by next month." My father. "Once we get custody, we can use the money however we want." Jessica won't have a say. The courtroom falls silent. My family's lawyer shuffles through his papers aimlessly, clearly unprepared for this revelation. Judge Peabody announces another short recess. When she returns, her expression is set in granite. "I have reviewed all the evidence and testimony in this case." This court finds no basis for the petition for emergency guardianship. In fact, what I see is deeply disturbing, a coordinated attempt to exploit a grieving mother for financial gain. Emily begins to protest, but the judge cuts her off. "Miss Emily Robinson, I strongly advise you to remain silent." This court dismisses the petition with prejudice, meaning the petitioners cannot refile on these grounds. Furthermore, I order an investigation into the possible perjury of Rachel Bennett and Charles and Elaine Robinson, whose testimony directly contradicts the documented evidence. The judge continues, each word striking like a hammer blow. "I am issuing an immediate restraining order prohibiting all petitioners from contacting Jessica Robinson. The trust will be unfrozen immediately and secured against further challenges." Emily's composure finally cracks. Her face contorts as she struggles to maintain her dignity while her plans crumble. My mother begins to cry. Real tears this time. My father stares ahead, his expression frozen in disbelief. "Miss Robinson," the judge says, looking directly at me. "This court finds that you acted with remarkable strength and clarity during an unimaginable loss. Your son would be proud of how you protected his legacy." My parents and Emily stand up, trying to approach me, but the bailiff steps between us, enforcing a new restraining order. David turns back to me, his professional demeanor softening. "The system worked today, Jessica. Justice has been served." Margaret's eyes glisten with tears. "Jason would have been so proud of you, dear." Michael's parents hug me, his mother whispering, "You honored our grandson and our son today." As I leave the courtroom, I touch the photo of Jason in my locket. A small silver frame holds his last school photo, smiling despite losing his hair to chemotherapy. His eyes are bright with the determination that carried him through 18 months of struggle. Reporters wait outside, microphones outstretched. A month ago, I would have bowed my head and hurried past. Today, I pause. "Mrs. Robinson, how do you feel about the court's decision?" I straighten my shoulders, feeling stronger than I have since the day we received Jason's diagnosis. Today, justice was served for my son. As the cameras flash, I walk toward the future Jason would have wanted for me. One where his memory is not just preserved, but honored through the strength he helped me discover. The trust fund. It's not just money, it is his legacy, and I have proven myself worthy of protecting it. The financial advisor slides the folder across his red desk. "These investment options would create sustainable funding for the scholarship program while preserving the principal," he explains. I study the numbers, no longer intimidated by the financial jargon. 1 week since the hearing, and the world already feels different. "The Pediatric Hematology Fellowship must be fully funded," I say, tapping the proposal. "That's non-negotiable." The advisor nods, taking notes. "And the restraining order. It stands firm. They can't come within 300 meters. My voice no longer wavers when I mention my family. It's strange how quickly family has become an administrative term rather than an emotional one. The local newspaper ran a front-page story yesterday. Mother vindicated in battle for trust. I received dozens of supportive calls and messages. Even Emily's fiancé called to apologize before announcing that their engagement was off. My parents are facing possible perjury charges, and Rachel was fired after her recorded testimony was circulated around her workplace. When I leave the counselor's office, Margaret is waiting in her old Buick, the window rolled down despite the autumn chill. "All set?" she asks. I slide into the passenger seat, remembering all those trips to and from the hospital with Jason. How Margaret brought thermoses of homemade soup when the cafeteria food became unbearable. How she sat with him while I showered or napped. I never thought I could do it, I admit as we drive. Stand up to them, create something lasting. Margaret pats my hand. I knew from the moment you put that figurine in his grave and made your promise. That night, I sleep peacefully for the first time since Jason's diagnosis. No nightmares about hospital corridors or the sounds of equipment. Instead, I dream of Jason, laughing, whole and strong, running through sunny fields. David calls the next morning. The foundation papers are filed. The trust is locked tight. Even the Supreme Court couldn't touch it now. My neighbors organize food deliveries. Every evening, someone shows up at my door with casseroles, soups, fresh bread. Small kindnesses that would have once overwhelmed me with gratitude now feel like confirmation of something I am slowly beginning to understand. Family is not always blood. I take out a photo of Jason, not a hospital photo, but one from before his illness, on the beach, his smile wide under his baseball cap. For the first time, I can look at it without dissolving into tears. "Now I know what to do with your legacy, my friend," I whisper. 6 months later, I'm standing in the pediatric blood disease ward where Jason spent so many hours. The walls are brighter now, painted with underwater scenes that Jason would have loved. A sign by the nurses' station reads, "Jason Robinson Memorial Wing." A young nurse approaches, extending her hand. "I'm Jennifer Adams, Jason Robinson's first scholarship recipient. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity to specialize in pediatric hematology." "Jason would be thrilled," I say, realizing that I'm smiling as I talk about him. Not the tense, painful smile of someone holding back tears, but a genuine expression of joy at his memory. He wanted to be a doctor himself someday. "The foundation makes such a difference," Jennifer says. 3 families have already received emergency housing assistance. The Jason Legacy Foundation now supports families facing the same battles we did, covering expenses that insurance doesn't cover, providing emergency housing near hospitals, funding specialized training for pediatric nurses. Each board meeting brings new opportunities to expand our reach. Margaret serves as volunteer coordinator, organizing a network of people who provide food, transportation, and childcare for families with hospitalized children. David handles all legal matters free of charge, ensuring the stability of the foundation. "You've created something beautiful out of something tragic," Michael's mother tells me during her monthly visit. She and her husband have become advocates for grandparents, helping other grandparents navigate the medical system when their grandchildren are sick. I find myself speaking at support groups, mentoring parents who are new to the terrifying world of chronic childhood illness. "The first step is to believe you can do it," I tell them. "The second is to know you don't have to do it alone." My voice no longer trembles when I speak in public. My hands no longer shake when I sign documents. The woman who stood frozen at her son's grave has become someone else, someone stronger, someone Jason would be proud of. A year to the day after Jason's funeral, I return to the cemetery. The path feels different under my feet, no longer a march to unbearable grief, but a purposeful visit to a place of connection. I place fresh flowers on his grave, tracing the letters of his name with my finger. The morning sun warms the granite. "Excuse me," a voice calls out. A woman approaches with a little girl about 7 years old holding her hand. "Are you Jessica Robinson?" I nod, standing up to greet them. "I'm Sarah Mitchell." This is my daughter, Emma. The woman's eyes shine with unshed tears. Emma was diagnosed with the same condition as your son last year. A specialist funded by your scholarship program found a treatment protocol that worked when nothing else did. Your son's legacy saved my daughter's life. Emma steps forward, shy but determined. Thank you for helping me get better. I kneel down to her level, seeing in her face the future Jason never had. You're welcome, Emma. Standing up again, I share Jason's story, not with pain, but with pride. Fighting for his legacy transformed me, I explain. I found strength I never knew I had. Sarah listens intently. The foundation is expanding? Yes. We're funding research into rare blood disorders starting next quarter. Margaret is officially joining the board, and David is structuring the research grants. Michael's parents are leading the grandparents' advocacy program. As they leave, I reach into my pocket and pull out my favorite Jason figurine, the one I placed on his grave a year ago. The cemetery worker retrieved it for me after the service, understanding my immediate regret at parting with it. I gently place it near his headstone. I kept my promise, Jason. Your legacy is safe and growing stronger every day. Standing in the same place where I once felt completely abandoned, I am surrounded by the presence of those who have become my true family, not bound by blood, but by something stronger: choice, loyalty, and love. The family that matters isn't always the one you're born into, I whisper to Jason. It's the one that stands by you when you need it most. As I walk back to the car, the morning sun warm on my face, I realize something profound. Sometimes the deepest betrayal leads to the most powerful transformation. I'm not just surviving right now, I'm thriving.